Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Today we're talking about how to defend your city. Honestly, one of the more requested topics that I've ever gotten. Alright, so we'll talk through the rules of defending your city, the best primary deputy pairings you want, and finally we'll discuss some artifact and pet combinations you might want to maximize your defenses. So sit back, relax, and we'll talk through how to save your city. Okay, when people ask me that, the first piece of advice I always give them is that the best city defense is to not get rallied. All right, hey, great, don't get rallied. Stay classy, Belron. See you next week.
Hey!
Okay, no, seriously, don't get rallied, but if you are going to get rallied, how's the best way to set up your defenses? Well, first, let's talk through a very basic thing. How do we even set up a garrison? It's pretty simple. You go to your wall here, you click on this middle button here, and it'll take you to your current garrison. Now, right now, if I get attacked, Tohara would defend my city, right? But what happens if they're not in the city, they're out fighting or something like that? If either of them are out, it'll go to my second, third, fourth, fifth, pairing here. Now, most of the time, a rally is going to take 5 minutes to get to your city at least. So you usually have time to get troops back to your city if you actually want to take the rally. But who knows, you could get swarmed or you could not be paying attention or something. So it is good to have some backups here just in case. Okay. So let's talk through the particular rules about defending your city. And there are two key differences when it comes to a city defense compared to a bastion or a pass defense. So what are the rules for bastion defense? There are two rules that are important. First, the enemy can only launch one rally per alliance. And second, in order to launch that rally, the enemy has to have territory touching that bastion. Okay, let's compare it to a city defense. The first rule is the same. The enemy can only launch one rally per alliance. But there is no second rule. There is no requirement that the enemy have territory touching your city in order to rally your city. For the most part, for a bastion or a pass, you're going to see one rally, maybe two rallies against it. Anything more than that is exceedingly rare. For a city, it is very common for it to get hit by 3 or 4 rallies, basically the entire warband rallying a single city, and you can even go more than that if you have additional shells outside the warband. Okay, so that's the first big difference between a bastion and a city. What's the second big difference? The second big difference is when you defend your city, you're defending all of the troops in the city, all right? You go to the Legion tab here. If you have troops in the hospital, they're not going to fight. If you have troops in the field, they're not going to fight. Other than that, everything you have in the city is going to defend your city. All right, sometimes I'll see, we'll scout a city and we'll see like a Magze garrison, which is a decent garrison, and they'll go, okay, it's archers. No, it's not. It's everything. All right, the commander, the deputy matter, but they're going to defend with all the troops in the city. In Call of Dragons, there are a lot of talents, there are a lot of skills that only apply when you have a single troop type in that legion, in that defense. For example, the Iron Will skill, which extends the duration of rage skills by a second, only takes effect when the legion is composed entirely of infantry units. This is one of the reasons why it's extremely important when you have a bastion defense, when you have a pass defense, or when you have a rally attacking one of those things, that you don't put the wrong troop type into that rally, into that bastion, etc. When you have a city defense, on the other hand, you're basically never going to be able to achieve that. You're always going to have mixed troop types in the city. And the reason that's important is when you choose your defenders, when you choose your primary, your deputy, their pet, their artifact, you have to keep that in mind. Select skills and talents that benefit the whole kaleidoscope of troops to best maximize your city defense. One last thing I want to talk through before we talk about specific hero pairings, and that's the physical magic divide in Call of Dragons. Most heroes have a rage skill, and most pets have a rage skill that does either physical or magic damage. Take a look at Li Shan-Yen here, okay? His rage skill does physical damage factor 1500, that's pretty good. When I'm defending a city, this damage factor is taking into account all of my physical troops. Yeah, that's the cav, that's the archers, and the infantry. All of those troop types are supporting Li Shan-Yen. Even though the archers and the infantry, like this is a cav commander, they're still supporting his damage factor. My mages, and because I'm the League of Order, my Celestials, however, do magic damage. And when it comes to his rage skill, they're doing this no good whatsoever. It's the same thing with most pets. Pets have a rage skill that does either physical or magic damage. For example, the Auric here does physical damage. So for the purposes of my city defense, if this is what I went with, this is benefiting for all my physical troops, but not my magic troops. Now, everyone's troop composition is going to be different, but for the most part, most players are going to have more physical troops than magic troops. So that is your first choice. Do I want a physical commander or do I want a magic commander, someone like Tohar? But there is a third option. All right, you can choose a commander whose rage skill does not depend on either physical or magic damage. One option, for example, is to choose a commander that doesn't have a rage skill whatsoever. For example, Magrat here, she doesn't have a rage skill, so it doesn't matter that her troops are physical or magic. She's going to do what she does anyway. That's kind of the reason she makes a pretty good mage commander as well. So we can choose a commander who doesn't have a rage skill. Alternately, we can choose a commander whose rage skill doesn't depend on either physical or magic troops. For example, Garwood just heals people. He doesn't care if it's physical or magical. Thea gives you a shield. Doesn't matter if it's physical or magical. And then the new sort of overall heroes, the way they made that work. Moo's damage factor is neither physical or magical. It works with anyone. The same thing with Bayhorn here, right? His damage factor is not physical or magical. So he will work with both physical and magic troops. Okay, so we have those three options. Either use a physical rage skill hero, use a magic rage skill hero, or use a hero that doesn't care one way or the other. How do you decide between those three categories? Well, you should look at your troop composition. If you have lots more physical troops than magic troops, that's the way you want to lean. Obviously, if you have lots more magic troops than physical troops, go the other way. And if you have a roughly equal composition, and I would say I have a roughly equal composition, then you kind of want to shade towards the direction of maybe I'm going with a hero that doesn't care about physical versus magic damage. Okay, one last note here. There is nothing that says you can't have a commander that does physical damage and a deputy that does magic damage or vice versa. Okay, there's one more thing I want to talk through before we start discussing specific garrison hero deputy commanders, okay? And that's Gorish, because Gorish recently got buffed as if Gorish needed to get buffed. And how did he get buffed? His rally got stronger. So you look at his new rally skill here, a lot of stuff going on here, but the bottom line is this. If your defenders include an infantry hero amongst them and multiple rallies hit your city, then Gorish is going to inflict a cower debuff on you, which is going to make you do a lot less counterattack damage during the rally. All right, this is kind of a big deal, especially for city defenses. And why is that? Because cities have the ability to be rallied by multiple rallies simultaneously. And so this buff affects city defenses a lot more than it affects bastion or pass defenses. Who should I have defending my city? Well, here's the answer to that, and there is no 100% one-size-fits-all answer to that question. Because everyone's troop compositions are different, the answer of who I want defending my city is going to depend. Even if you had all heroes 6-starred, awakened, etc., it would depend on your individual troop composition as well as your pet choice on who you want to be the garrison captain for your city. I do think the heroes with a garrison skill are pretty good. The garrison tree is a good tree. So particularly for the primary, I do tend to want to put a hero with the garrison tree in there. And later in the video, we'll go over a sample build and discuss some of the options there. The other thing is war pets matter a lot. You want heroes in there that are going to empower your war pet to do what it needs to do. Some war pets, work generically. You can have any heroes there. Some pets like the Auric really need specific heroes to make them work. But having said that, let's go through the garrison heroes, talk through them to help you decide what you want to do. Okay, we'll start with Li Shanyan here. I have him pulled up here. He increases your hit points by 5% while ignoring 5% of the enemy defense. Hey, that's nice. His rage skill does some good physical damage and hits a legion near it, so that's a little bit of AoE protection in case you're worried about it getting hit by multiple marches. His third skill boosts hero skill damage, but this is dependent on casting a rage skill. So if you have Li Shanyan, you don't want to pair him with a hero that doesn't cast a rage skill. For example, Tohar. You want him with another rage skill hero. And then his last skill is very nice. Whenever you get a buff, you ignore 30% of enemy attack. Basically 3 seconds every 5 seconds. That's real good, and it is really powerful in a garrison, right? So Li Shanyan, good choice for if you have a lot of cav, and you have another hero that's doing a lot of rage skill damage. Our other cav garrison hero is Theodore. I don't love him in the garrison. Now, Theodore's rage skill is pretty good. It inflicts the bruise debuff on the enemy, which is really nice, particularly if you have him as the primary. So if you have him as the primary and you have a deputy that does a lot of rage skill damage, this is a nice little combo here. His garrison skill makes him a bit tankier, but it's just okay. And then what I don't like about him is he has this buff mechanic where basically whenever he inflicts debuffs on the enemy, he builds up these stacks that makes his rage skill hit harder. It's hard for him to do that in the garrison. He kind of needs a deputy to help him do that, and I don't love the deputy options there. So Theo's okay. I consider him an inferior cav commander to Li Shanyan. Okay, we have 2 infantry commanders with the garrison tree. The first is Magro. Magro's an excellent choice. He was pretty much the gold standard for garrison leaders for a long time. However, the recent buff to Gorish, hitting infantry commanders, makes me rethink Magro, so he is falling a little bit in terms of how much I recommend him. Still very strong. His rage skill is an AoE skill. It not only hits his target, but 2 additional targets. So if you're getting hit with multiple rallies, this can hit them. Now, the thing about this rage skill is it's a cleave effect. It's not like a full circle around the city. So if the rallies come at you from like completely different angles, the second rally is going to be able to dodge this. The other nice thing about Magro is if he gives debuffs, he transmits those debuffs to other legions around him. So I love that. And of course, if you have other legions, just enemy legions just kind of standing around your city, maybe just because they're AFK there, or maybe they're getting ready to reinforce the rally hitting you, this AoE attack, these debuff transmission can hit those as well. I also think his garrison skill is pretty good here. Gives him a damage dealt bonus, gives him an HP bypass bonus. Those are both really good. I think Magro's a solid choice. Our other infantry garrison hero is Garwood. I do not like Garwood in the garrison. Every time I see someone with a Garwood garrison, I die a little bit inside. The heal does not care whether you have magic troops or physical troops. It basically takes them all into account. So, okay, that's nice. But here's the thing with healing. You heal lightly wounded units, all right? When you're fighting in a garrison, when you're fighting a rally like this, you basically take 3 types of casualties. You take lightly wounded units who are basically available to you as soon as the battle ends. You take sev wound units who go into your hospital. And then you take dead units, which are dead, right? When you are healing in the middle of a battle, that just means you're pulling lightly wounded units back into the fight. That can help you win a close fight. It also means you're going to take more sev wounds, you're going to take more dead. And for a rage skill, I don't like that, okay? I'd rather do essentially anything else than heal units in the middle of a city defense. And while Garwood does have the garrison tree, none of his skills are garrison focused. So I got it, he's got the garrison tree, but I recommend stay away from Garwood, especially now that Gorse will punish you if you have Garwood in your city defense. Actually, I take back what I said earlier. We do have one more infantry hero with the garrison tree. This guy is kind of a meme at this point. During Season 1, he actually was a decent budget pick for the garrison because if you have him awakened, he does a pretty good bleed effect basically anytime he counterattacks when he gets less than 50% of his units. So, I mean, that's fine if you were in Season 1 and you were a free-to-play low-spend player. Bakhar was a fine choice for your garrison. Really, the best choice for your garrison is don't get rallied. But having that said, he does have the garrison tree. At this point, I don't recommend him, particularly now that we have Gorish punishing you if you have this guy in your garrison. Okay, we've got one archer with the garrison tree, and that's Magrat, and she is a super strong pick for your garrison in your city. And the reason is she doesn't have a rage skill, so she doesn't care whether you have magic troops or physical troops. She's going to empower them all. to do 500% more damage. That's the awakened level, once every 5 seconds. So that's all of your troops hitting like a truck once every 5 turns. That's really good. There are 2 downsides about Magrat. The first is that her garrison skill's honestly pretty underwhelming. And the second is her lack of rage cycle can impact other heroes and other war pets. So you kind of have to pair her with another hero that doesn't care about the rage cycle. You know, Zeta is a great choice, obviously. Still, Magrat's a really solid choice, particularly for players that have a decent mix of magic and physical troops. We have one magic hero with the garrison tree, and that's Tohar. And Tohar's garrison skill recently got buffed pretty substantially. If you saw my prior video where I got rallied, Tohar was in my garrison, and you can see his AoE here. It's hitting troops substantially far away from my city, almost a full zone over, right? Now it hits 3 legions for damage factor 350, which is decent, particularly when you consider it's 350 times 3, right? Every time he fires, he does it the next 3 attacks. Now, it is a magic damage, so in order to use Tohar, you really need to have a lot of magic troops. So this is mostly League of Order players, but if you do have a substantial magic presence in your garrison, like a majority or at least close to it, I do think you should consider Tohar as a garrison hero. Okay, those are all the heroes with the garrison tree, but you don't have to put a hero with a garrison tree in for your city defense. You can put anyone. And do I recommend anyone else? Well, earlier we talked through about how there's certain heroes that don't care whether you have magic troops or physical troops, but I don't really recommend specifically putting those in your garrison just because of that, right? If you have a good balance, consider Magrat, but I would not put Mu in there just for that reason. What I really want you to look at is, what heroes do you have awakened? And in particular, what are your strongest pets? And do you need any heroes to empower those strongest pets? For example, let's say you've got a cracked Golden Rock. The Golden Rock needs you to have a hero with passion. So maybe you put Emrys or maybe you put Bakshi in your garrison just to help out your really strong pet. Okay, now one quick aside before I show you the talent trees for your city defense. And that's the time I'm recording this. We don't have the G4 mages announced or released yet. I expect that to happen in the next, 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. And one of those G4 mages is going to be a garrison leader. So who knows? They might be a great garrison leader. We're just going to have to wait and see. Okay, with that out of the way, how do we build out these heroes for your city defense? And I'm using Li Shanyan here as an example. They're mostly going to be the same, but with one big exception, and that's if you have Magrat as your garrison leader. She obviously doesn't care about the rage cycle or skill damage, and so her talent tree is going to look a lot different. I'll give an example of Magrat later on this video. But for right now, the example I'm going to show you is if you have garrison leaders that care about the rage cycle and skill damage. Right, so obviously you start at the bottom here, no choice. And then we have our first chance to screw up. This is the garrison. It's never going anywhere. We never want movement speed, so never put any points into movement speed for your garrison defense. Okay, working our way up, no real choice. And then we're going to go up the garrison tree, because the garrison tree is very good. First level, no choice here. And then do we want movement speed? No, we don't. And so the choice is between defense or attack. Both are valid choices. I'd rather have the attack. Okay, second level, kind of interesting. We can improve our watchtower. Here's the tip. Your watchtower sucks. Never put any points into that. And so do we want more normal attack or do we want more counterattack? I think you want more counterattack because let's say you're getting hit by 2 or 3 rallies. Counterattack helps against all of them, whereas the normal attack, it only helps at the rally that hits you first. So that's why I prefer counterattack to normal attack. Okay, the next level kind of confuses a lot of people, so let's take a few seconds to talk through it. Alright, we have Thorn Barrier. This one's straightforward. Whenever you get hit, you get a chance to put a debuff on the enemy. It's a good debuff. I like this skill. This other skill is the one that confuses people, and that's Fair Defense. Fair Defense does 2 things. The first is it turns off unit skills, and the second, it normalizes the attributes of all the units of the same level. Let's talk through the first part now. The unit skills are disabled. What the heck does that mean? If you look at the unit cards, each type of unit has a number of skills, and what Fair Defense, or for that matter, Fair Offense does, is it disables these for the duration of the battle. Now, here's the thing. It turns them off on both sides, so is that a good thing? What you're going to find is that it is net beneficial, it's just not that big of a deal. Let's talk about Cav first. Cav have a skill, Unyielding Rush. That's the important thing to turn off. Unyielding Rush really does two main things. The first is the Cav charge. They move real fast right before they engage the enemy. And the second is they get an instant rage cycle if they hit a ranged legion, so a mage or an archer, right? Your city has all types of troops in it. It does not count as a ranged legion, so the Cav charging into you, they do not get a full rage bar. They will still charge into you unless you have fair defense. If you take fair defense, they don't charge into you. But in neither case are they getting a full rage bar right off the start. So how important is to delay combat by 2 seconds? It's not important at all, so you can turn this off. It just didn't do anything in the first place. When you look at mages, when you look at archers, they have these effects. These effects only take effect when the relevant legion is composed entirely of that type of mage. Your city's never getting this because you have lots of different types of troops in your city. The enemy rally, are they getting this? Most of the time, no. For an enemy, for example, mage rally to get this, they have to be 100% Vestals. That almost never happens, right? People put Celestials, they put Longleaf Treants, they put Satyrs in the rally. This theoretically could help. It just has very little practical effect. And when you look at the Marksman, the Archer Legions, it's basically the same thing. They have a buff that only takes effect if the rally is composed entirely of that specific type of archer, which almost never happens. So you can turn these off. It just doesn't have that big of an impact. The best effect is on infantry, because infantry do have a skill called Perseverance. Basically makes them tankier as they get lower and lower in health. Okay, it is nice to take away that defense boost when the rally is getting low. And so as we come back to fair defense, is there any downside to it? It's a net positive, but there is one downside, and that's the opportunity cost of taking Thorn Barrier. And frankly, I think Thorn Barrier is just a better talent, so that's what I take. Okay, the next level up is an interesting choice. We can either take less normal attack damage, so if you're getting hit by an archer rally, this is really good. We can negate the surround penalty, or we can do more skill damage. Okay, I'm really built on skill damage, so I like that. Garrison Determination is really strong too, and we may come back to that. What about flank protection? If you're being straight swarmed, you've probably lost anyway. If you're getting hit by multiple rallies, it's not a great situation to be in. This does help. I'd still rather have the skill damage. Our next level up, we can improve the Watchtower. That's bait, don't do that. We can take less skill damage. Hey, that's good. Or we can generate more rage. This is a good rage generation. I like to start here because I'm rage focused with my garrison. Okay. Next level up is super strong. 5% more damage, 5% less damage, or even more rage generation. I'm not going to hide the ball from you. These are all great. Take them all. All right, in the top of the tree, I'd rather have them not wounded in the first place, so I take Formidable. All right, now that we've got the end of talent tree and we've maximized this level, we got 7 points left over. Where do we put them? For me, it really comes down to these two choices. Do I want less skill damage, or do I want less normal attack? Which really comes down to, am I more afraid of archers or cav? I think both are valid choices. The KVKs I'm in, I tend to see more cav rallies than archer rallies, so I put 5 points in Tough Garrison, with just the last two in Garrison Determination. But I think you can swap these just depending on the type of rallies you see most often. Okay, so what artifact should you use for your city defense? Well, when the game first came out, we had 2 artifacts that were specifically designated for the rally garrison fight. And in fact, only these 2 artifacts will trigger during a rally garrison. And the rally artifact is the Bloodblade Banner. This thing fell off quickly. And the reason this thing fell off so quickly is you can control what troops are in the rally. And so you can have all infantry or cav. In fact, you should have only one troop type in your rally. And so you can just grab a Generation 2 infantry artifact, cav artifact, archer artifact, whatever, that's going to have much better passives than this Generation 1 artifact. And even though this thing will trigger during the battle, the passives are just so much stronger. You want that on the Gen 2 artifact. For a bastion defense, for a pass defense, it's the same story. But for a city defense, it's different because you can't control what type of troops you have in your city. And so the Breath of the Forest is still a strong choice because all of its passives apply to all of your troops. And on top of that, you get these effects during the course of the battle, whereas every other artifact is not going to give you those effects. We are sort of at the point where if you have a Generation 2 artifact maxed out to include Exemplar, it is a decent choice to use that Exemplar artifact instead of the Breath of the Forest. I think it's pretty close. I'm still going with Breath, but if you have Lunaris maxed out, these passive effects mostly apply to all of your troops. Now this biggest one here, the 40%, only my cav get that, but everything else, this 10% from the Exemplar, the 22% Legion attack, and the 7.5% just from 6-starring it, they apply to everyone. So this is sort of like a close second if I was a big cav player. If I'm a big archer player, maybe I go with Gilded Crossbow, something like that. But for right now, the Breath of the Forest, still slightly the best artifact, assuming you have everything maxed out. If you're a free-to-play low spender early season, what should you go with? And assuming you don't have Breath of the Forest, a good thing to consider is something like the Fang of Ashkari, because it has passives that apply to everyone. Now you can see I don't have this guy leveled up anymore. I reforged it to get stuff for the Exemplar, but this is a good early season free-to-play low spender sort of alternative to the Harp. Okay, what war pet should you use to defend your city? Really, the answer is going to come down to what's your strongest war pet that works with the commander-deputy pairing you've got. In my prior video, I used Xenophon here, a very strong Sapphire. Now, one of the issues you should consider is, do I want an AoE pet or do I want a single target pet? Now, like I said before, your city is at risk of being hit with multiple rallies, so it's not wrong to choose an AoE pet, and it might be a good idea. Consider your hero deputy commander pairing and find out what the best pet that works for them. Now keep in mind, not all of your commanders are going to empower all of your pets. Some things are obvious, like if you're using an Auric Warhound, you need Nea to make that work. Some things are not as obvious. For example, you might have a pet with the Fierce Attack skill. Fierce Attack needs your deputy to cast a Rage skill. Well, if you got a Mag Zay garrison, Fierce Attack is literally never going off. So just make sure whatever pet you're using synergizes with the garrison commander you have. Okay, I got one last tip for you when it comes to defending your city. If you go and click on your garrison, you'll see the garrison pair here, but the garrison does not automatically equip either the artifact or the war pet. So let's take a look at my heroes. And we go and click on Tohar here. Now, Tohar sees a lot of open field play for me, but he's always the deputy. I use Bird as the primary. And so I have him equipped with the Breath of the Forest artifact. But you see when I click on this guy has no pet equipped to him. So unless I go in and affirmatively put that pet on him, he's not going to have a pet when my city gets attacked. Well, I could do a couple things here. I could give him some pet that I don't use. Here's a terrible Sapphire I'll equip on him. Okay, great. Well, now he has a pet at least, but still, it's not a good pet. I really want a strong pet on him. There's no easy way around this other than to remind you, hey, don't get rallied, but if you're at risk of being rallied, make sure your garrison pair is equipped with the right pet, the right artifact, before you sign off. Alright, and hey, that's all I got for you today. I hope this video was some use to you, and until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.